Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing horror stories, suspense stories, whatever stories live on YouTube today. This one has been put forward by everybody. It's a short story by Kyle from RYKERROAD, inspired by his mum's true events from years ago. So hold on to your hat. This is a quiet story. Let's check it out. Okay, so yeah, obviously these are inspired by true events, and Kyle is an excellent narrator. I've checked out a couple of his stories now, so go and show him some love. His name is Kyle Wright425 at YouTube. You know, go and subscribe. He's got some great stories. Right, this is Darren, his mum's story. Let's get it.
My mom has had a story to tell for a while and has just recently put it onto paper. A little disclaimer. The names of certain people have been changed and all of the story is 100% real. Nothing has been exaggerated or added. What you're about to hear is disturbing and scary. I will be reading the story from her perspective. Thank you for watching my content and please enjoy.
So you get this now. Riker Mom has give Kyle a story to read and he's reading it as if he was his mum, basically. So, I'll just let you listen. Good night, Anessa.
In the spring of my senior year, I discovered I was pregnant, so before I even graduated, I was someone's mother. What I thought was the scariest and most tragic time of my life turned out to be one of the three biggest blessings of my life. The scariest and most disturbing part was about to begin. Being a woman of great faith in the Bible ever since I was a child, this surely is something I never thought would happen to me, but sharing my experience is something I feel will be good for me to purge in a proper way, and I want to thank my son for giving me this opportunity, for I know he has heard it, never questioned me about believing it, and will share it in the only way that he knows how to. Shortly after my son Eric was born, we had a babysitter who was my ex-husband's neighbor. I will refer to her as Carla. We were very familiar with her and knew she was a very trusted sitter in the neighborhood. Carla took very good care of our son. However, about a year later, she was acting very unsettled, almost afraid, which was very unlike her. When I asked her what was wrong, she hesitated several moments and then poured some coffee. As we sat in her living room that evening, she shared with me the heartbreaking story from when she was 16. Carla had a boyfriend who I will refer to as Darren. He was almost 24. He liked to wear his black leather, he rode a motorcycle decked out in chrome with his black helmet. Basically, every parent's nightmare for a 16-year-old daughter. And
that is facts. That is a nightmare for everyone's parents. What I like about this story is, especially the storytelling, is when Kyle tells these stories. I've listened to these when I've been driving around at work, and I can visualize what he's talking about. He's very, very good at explaining what the situation, what's going on, and the description of how things are. It's just, I think he's one of the it's like he's like an audiobook. You know what I mean? He should do it professionally. He really should.
They soon tried to stop her from seeing him, but they loved one another and they took every chance to sneak away together. Eventually, Darren decided to try to properly talk to Carla's father, and he showed up in front of their house, in his leather, on that motorcycle. Needless to say, things didn't go as planned, because immediately her father ran out of the front door angry and protective, telling Darren to never come back and that Carla was grounded indefinitely. In a defeated rage, Darren sped off, throwing gravel everywhere with his back tire and out of sight. Carla was crying and ran into her room and slammed the door as any young girl would do. Her father had just ruined her life and had taken all of her happiness away with only 3 sentences. It was over. However, the worst was not over. Because you see, down the long road, Darren lost control of his motorcycle, went off the road, smashing into a tree, and died. Absolutely heartbroken, Carla said she still hadn't completely recovered from that loss, and how sometimes she felt the comfort of feeling like Darren was never far away, always watching over her. You never really ever lose the first love of your life.
I think as well, when people do lose someone like that, someone they very, very truly love, You want to believe that there's something there. You want to believe that you may see them again, etc. And every little thing in life that is like suspicious to you, like, oh, that could be Darren, that, or that, you know what I mean? You want to believe. I feel like that urge to see them again sometimes clouds people's vision, maybe. I don't know. I personally haven't gone through it to that extent, so I don't know.
With all of this being said, she had told me about a locket that Darren had given her, and he had said that no matter what, they would never be apart. It had been years since she had seen it, and not sure even where it was. That morning, she found the locket resting on her dresser. Puzzled, but not rattled yet, she placed it in her jewelry box. That afternoon, the locket was in her bathroom by the sink. Feeling very uneasy, she decided to put it in her bottom drawer, just so it couldn't be grabbed mistakenly again. But then, that evening, just before I arrived, she found the locket sitting on her kitchen table. She was too afraid to even touch it and walked away, not entering the kitchen since. She agreed to go in with me so I could see it for myself. Sure enough, there was a locket on a chain, shaped like a heart, in the middle of her kitchen table.
Now remember this is not a fictional story. This is coming from Ryker this, who's in the chat at the minute. This is her own experiences. Obviously names have been changed, etc. like Kyle said at the beginning of the thing. But I'll tell you what I'd be doing. If a locket had been moving around my house like that, like I said in that other video, I'd be getting one of these GoPros. I'd be sticking it on that locket, wherever it is. You know what I mean? In the house. Put it in the bottom drawer, stick it on night mode and put it in the drawer and see where it goes, see how it goes. I'd want to know, me. It'd do my head in.
I had never seen her wear it or even talk about it until then. Feeling intrigued by the story, my then husband and I decided to investigate a bit. We went to our local library and researched way past newspaper articles. We discovered Darren's obituary with the exact date and year that Carla told us. As a result, we decided to make the drive to the cemetery where he is buried. We found his spot with unusual ease, carefully reading the headstone. The dates matched. Feeling a cold rush over both of us, we left and drove home in silence, not knowing what to think or how to feel about any of this. Several months later, the locket began to travel, for lack of a better word, through...
Is this footage that Kyle's taken just specifically for the video? Because this looks like it's on a camera. If it is, it's very innovative.
Carla's house again, along with the stereo playing without being plugged in. It was playing a particular song. She was visibly shaken and asked me if I would just take the locket away from her. Not just feeling afraid, but also how it reminded her of losing Darren like it was yesterday. She was still heartbroken, and by then I was a single mother and I was trying to be more responsible by making better decisions. But I hated seeing how afraid she was in her own home, so I said yes. I shouldn't have. One morning I woke up and I noticed the locket on my dresser. I stared at it for a few seconds and I put it away back in the bottom of my jewelry box. The next day, I found it in my bathroom. A couple of days later, in my kitchen, on the table. Knowing that was enough for me, I threw it in the trash and I hauled it out to the curb myself. A week later, when I found it again on my dresser, that's when I knew something was very wrong and I began to feel a cold fear. I realized that I had disrespected something that had represented Darren's love for his girl and it began to wash over me, and I panicked. I reluctantly took it back to Carla and told her that I couldn't have it in my home. We were both equally freaked out, but she understood and she took the locket back. Just days afterwards, I arrived after work to pick up my son. She was very rattled and told me how she kept finding that locket in different places all through her house, and she had never once touched it.
Can you imagine that? Going to a different house and it's moving around someone else's house. Cemetery is a stock photo, but Eric's at the beginning is real. Right, okay. Excellent.
As we tried to make sense of it all, suddenly her stereo turned on by itself, playing the same song, which I will name later, and then it turned off. She mentioned that it also had happened a couple of times as well. Since she was afraid to approach it all day, I walked over with her and saw for myself that she had unplugged it. So you can imagine our horror as it came on again, turning up the volume. She crumbled to the floor in tears and I felt helpless. A few minutes later, she made her way to the hall closet and got down an old Ouija board in the box, saying, "Why didn't I think of this before?"
No. I won't even have one of these in my house. I won't have one. I've never seen anything yet, thank God. but I would not have one of them. I wouldn't even tempt it. I mean, I wouldn't even say Candyman in the mirror 5 times. You know what I mean? From the film. I wouldn't do that either.
With our hands on the planchette, through her tears, she asked, "Darren, is that you?" It began to swirl around the board, hovering next to yes. It was then that I realized that the board was floating up off the table, and our hands were getting higher and higher. I instantly took my hands away and it fell to the floor. Needless to say, this was terrifying. Soon after, I registered Eric for preschool. I couldn't have him in that house, and she agreed. A couple of years passed and I didn't see much of Carla, nor did I talk to her on the phone. It's funny how things just stop happening, but it seemed appropriate, I guess. I bought my first house, and during the summer months, our neighbor girl would babysit for me. Most of the time, her best friend was there with her. Shopping one day, I saw Ouija boards in the game section. Not even thinking about it, I grabbed it on impulse and thought for some unimaginable reason it might be fun for them.
Don't ever poke the bear. Say this to people all the time. Don't tempt things. Don't poke the bear. Right, come on, what are you doing?
I still cannot believe that I did that. They seemed unimpressed at first, but then they started playing with it. The first couple of weeks seemed fun and harmless. They said a young boy named Todd would talk to them, and pretty soon they were doing it every day. Not feeling any alarm, I was just glad that they just seemed to enjoy it, and then one day after work, they asked me, "Who's Darren?" I stopped in my tracks and I just looked at them. They informed me that he would not let them talk to Todd anymore and that he did not seem friendly at all. I made light of the situation and just said not to mess with it anymore. I buried the Ouija board in my closet and I shut the door, hoping that it was just a coincidence. It wasn't.
Kill it with fire.
Soon, late at night after my son was in bed, I started hearing a strange sound in my house. It was faint and hard to make out at first, but night after night it kept happening and it grew louder. It became clear to me that this was a breathing sound coming from everywhere in my home, almost like through the ductwork. I checked everything, trying to find the source of this breathing, but I just couldn't. It would last until I made myself fall asleep, trying to ignore it. Feeling like I was going crazy, I had my best friend come and spend the night with me. She was already aware of the things that had happened before, and so I told her that we were listening to see if she could hear it.
I mean, you do that, don't you? When you feel on edge, you feel a little bit like, you know, scared and stuff. Get your mates round. Get your mates round for comfort. Maybe it won't happen. Maybe it's all in my head. You start every single scenario. You know what I mean?
I needed some validation. It became late and we were holed up in my room playing cards. With nothing happening and us growing sleepy, we agreed to play one more hand, and all of a sudden, there it was. I instantly gasped and I said, "Shh, there it is. Do you hear that? Please tell me that you hear that." She looked straight at me and said, "Yes, I do. What the hell?" Half laughing and somewhat panicking, I was just glad that someone else could hear it too. We sat as still as we could and listened to it for what seemed like forever, and then it hit me. The song that played over and over on Carla's unplugged stereo was by The Police, "Every Breath You Take." My best friend also came to the same conclusion. I was immediately sick to my stomach. It eventually faded away, but we didn't get much sleep that night. Another incident that I didn't tell anyone about for a long time happened to me in my car. As I sat at a red light in a major intersection for even our smallish town, I noticed in the cross lane immediately to my right was a motorcycle. Now,
Riker Mom's saying on chat, you question everything, including your sanity. Well, you would. If something's driving you crazy like that, you do tend to overthink. And certain things that could only be a small, minor thing could be heightened and highlighted, and then you manifest something in your mind that's not there. You know what I mean? Or that you're exaggerating and thinking it's something that's worse than it is when it may not be. But it could be. Well, that's how you drive yourself daft, by going, it might not be, it will be, it won't be, it will be. What's that? That's a big thing. No, it's not. It's a small thing. It's a big thing. And then that's how you drive yourself crazy.
Logic would have it
Hang on, let me take it back. His back's not working. Ah, that's because I'm on the volume.
For even our smallish town, I noticed in the cross lane immediately to my right was a motorcycle. Now, logic would have it that he had a green light and he should be going, but he just sat there. He was dressed all in black from head to toe. The shine coming from the chrome on his bike was almost blinding, right down to the spokes on the wheels. Time seemed to stand still as I couldn't take my eyes off of him, even though he slowly turned his head and seemed to stare right at me. I was completely unaware of my surroundings, but I do know that we should have been holding up traffic, but there was none. Frozen in shock by what I saw, I watched the biker finally drive away down the main street. With my surroundings immediately back to normal, I quickly turned to find the black, intimidating motorcycle and its rider, but they were just gone. Also,
see, now motorcycle drivers do ride faster than everybody else. They just do. You could have been sat there longer than you think because of the way you was perceiving it. The motorcycle guy could have just been looking coincidentally in your direction. He turned off. He could have zoomed up the street, turned again. Oh, you know what I mean? But if it was the ghost of Darren, if you like, you're going to tell yourself that anyway. Even if it wasn't, you know what I mean? Things click in your mind, especially after hearing those breathing noises, etc., and like the locket moving round and stuff, and the stereo turning on and whatever. I suppose everything would freak you out. You know what I mean?
Immediately back to normal, I quickly turned to find the black, intimidating motorcycle and its rider, but they were just gone. Also during this time, I had a boyfriend whom I always asked to stay until I fell asleep. He eventually said how he always felt like he was being watched in my house, especially after I went to bed. We both now know why. One day he invited a few of his friends over and they wanted to play around with the Ouija board and to see if anything happened. I should have objected more. At first, not much happened.
Objected more? You should have killed it with fire!
If anything happened, I should have objected more. At first, not much happened, but then they began asking taunting questions trying to get a response. What happened next, I will never forget. With 5 people working the board, the planchette suddenly flew across the room and the board itself flipped over and off of the table. This happened in broad daylight and they all ran out of my front door. A reasonable response, who could blame them? I called a friend whose father was a pastor and asked him to come over, explaining everything to him from the beginning, and he adamantly insisted that I let him take the board and destroy it, something I should have done way before now. He did as he promised, and I never saw the locket or heard the breathing in my home again. The relief was overwhelming for several weeks, until I started to have the same dream over and over again.
Okay.
I would dream that my landline would ring and I would answer it, and all I could hear was that breathing. No one would reply no matter how much I asked. It was just breathing. Each time it was the same dream, until the last time. I was seeing 3 shadowed people standing outside of my front window. The middle one appeared to be wearing a motorcycle helmet.
And that's where I would have closed the curtains and gone back to bed.
Now this was an impossible thing since my front window was about 20 feet off of the ground and I felt that familiar panic, if you will. At the same time, I was talking to someone on my phone and I said, "There are 3 people standing outside my front window just staring at me." To which I heard an unfamiliar voice reply,
"No, they're not outside anymore. They're in your house."
I awoke barely able to breathe, thankful for the approaching morning light. I never had the dreams again, and I still have never heard or seen another thing. I still don't know why, but I am forever thankful. Years later, as my boys were growing up having their own experiences, I have felt helpless, responsible, and guilt, knowing now that I clearly allowed an open door to something evil that obviously followed us to another home has been difficult to accept. Sometimes the sins of a mother lingers longer than you can imagine, and they did. That was many years ago, and I'm thankful for the protection that God has given us since then. If you take anything away from my story, please let it be this.
Destroy the fucking Ouija board in the first place. Sorry. Let me run that back in because I spoilt the atmosphere of that.
They did. That was many years ago, and I'm thankful for the protection that God has given us since then. If you take anything away from my story, please let it be this. Evil is real, Satan is a liar, but God is good.
Fantastically narrated by Kyle right there, which is RYKERROAD's son. So RYKERROAD, now that you're on chat, I'm going to ask you, has there been anything since then? Has there been anything since then that as I know from the time of Kyle saying this, it's a while back he narrated this. Has anything happened since then? And are you still in the same home that you initially moved to? No, sir. Good. Good. Do you still believe that it was a thing, or do you think it was because you was younger and you was maybe believing something that may have not there? Do you think the breathing may have been real, or do you think it may have been like an air vent, or do you think it may have been like AC? Do you know what I mean? Do you ever think like that, or do you still think it's like that was that and that's what happened? I'm interested to know. When playing with Ouija boards, you hear that you must say goodbye, the spirit will forever be in your home, is what I was taught. I've never played one. Don't play with one! God's sake, I won't even have one in the house. It was definitely something. It went on for years. Wow. And did you witness this stereo and stuff going on? Or was anything in that story dramatized by Kyle? All true, you promise. Cool. I mean, I believe you. I've never seen anything. Don't want to see anything. I say that every time I say that. And you know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't know. I'm skeptical first unless I actually see something or experience something. You know what I mean? I'm a person who thinks with their eyes, if you like. But I don't doubt that you went through it. I'll believe anything. If, you know, adamant. But what was the other question I was going to ask now? It was lost my chain of thought. You may not sleep tonight though. Has that brought a load of feelings and emotions back? Wow. Okay. Did Kyle read that? Did Kyle read that word for word from your hand, or has he added like ad-libbed bits? Is that your story that he wrote word for word? Is what I'm asking. Sorry, you haven't heard it in a while. Wow. Word for word. So that is your story. That is your story. You know what? It made for a good story, and your Kyle is very, very, very good at coming across in these stories. I've listened to 3 now. Like I said, I've done the Devil's Triangle, excellent story. Darren, excellent story, and something followed me into the woods. But it was yeah, I was really impressed. So I'm going to give him some shout outs. So if you're still watching the video at this point, please go and subscribe to RYKERROAD, which is their music reaction channel. Subscribe to their Cavecast, which is their podcasting channel. I've been on there as well. It's a lot of fun. And to Kyle Wright's personal channel, which has got all these scary stories on what you've just seen me react to now. And obviously, I'm going to bring more scary stories onto the channel very, very soon. Anyway, if you like my videos, then please hit like and subscribe, and I shall see you all in the next video.